Cal Newport. He's going to change your world. He's going to change how you think about technology. So Cal Newport, if you've not heard of him, maybe it's because he's not on social media at all, but he's an influencer. He's written best-selling books. Deep Work is one of them. Digital Minimalism is another one. He's got another amazing book coming out very soon. It is absolutely incredible. It's going to make you want to sign up and pre-order it immediately. But he writes for the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Economist, and lots of other publications about deep work, about how to do the best work you can possibly do for the world. And it doesn't involve being distracted. It doesn't involve checking email constantly or checking your phone constantly or doing social media. He's not opposed to those things. As a matter of fact, he leverages technologies, and he talks about how he leverages technology to get work done and to get better work done in his job. I mean, he's a really, really well-known author, and you may have read a book or two of his in the past, but he has a regular job. He's a professor at Georgetown University, and he has all the things that he talks about. He actually backs it up with science and research, but he has a job to do, and he leverages technology. He doesn't hate technology. He just talks about how do you use technology actually to be more productive. This episode can very likely change how you work, change your world, and change your life. So give it a listen with this is my interview with Cal Newport. Cal, welcome to the show.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for making time to come on. So tell us, what is deep work and why is it important?
So deep work is my term for activities that you do that are cognitively demanding. So you actually have to think hard about what you're doing, and that you're doing without distraction. So you're not switching context. You're not glancing at an inbox. You're not glancing at your phone. And my argument about deep work is that in knowledge work, as it gets more competitive, as it gets more complicated, deep work is what really moves the needle. These are the efforts that really produce new value, and therefore the efforts that really matter. And that when we don't recognize that, we accidentally fill our time more and more with what I call shallow work tasks, which are fine, logistical administrative tasks to keep the lights on, but they don't move the needle. So we end up sort of accidentally holding back our careers or accidentally holding back our businesses because we're putting our efforts into the cognitive activities that give us a lot lower returns.
So what are some examples of deep work? Like what does that mean? What are specific things that you have done or others can do that is considered deep work?
Well, I would say anytime you're giving concentrated attention to something that's difficult and producing new value with your brain, you're doing deep work. So for example, if you're programming a computer, if you're coming up with a new business strategy, if you're writing a chapter of a book, if you're in a brainstorm meeting with your team, trying to figure out like what's our new strategy for the Q1 quarters, anything where it's you applying your brain to produce new value in a highly concentrated manner, that's deep work. Shallow work, I just say, is everything else. So I just describe it as anything that's not that.
How do you get into deep work? I mean, we live in this world where we're so distracted. You know, I'm sitting here at my desk and it was interesting. I am preparing for this interview, and this morning I find myself keep getting distracted, and I turned on like this notifications thing on my MacBook Pro, and I'm like, it was a kind of a new thing I hadn't used before, and I'm like, this is terrible. I turned it back off, and I'm getting notifications on my phone, and I'm like, I got to turn all these notifications off, and I do a fair job at some of this, but do you have tactics and advice for people to get into deep work?
It's a good point, because I think our business lives in general are very fragmented. We jump from emails to meetings, back to emails on the Zoom, back to emails. There's constantly text messages going on. There's Slack going on. So we've created a working world that is not at all conducive for depth. And so in order to actually put aside time regularly for something like deep work, you have to fight for it. It's not going to be something casual. It's unlikely that you're going to just be going through your day and say, hey, you know what, I don't have much to do and like I'm in the mood to concentrate. So some of the things I recommend is that you actually schedule deep work on your calendar like you would a meeting, like you would an appointment, and protect it the same way. You know, if you had a dentist appointment on your calendar and someone said, hey, can you jump on a Zoom call? You say, well, I have an appointment till 11. We'll have to do it afterwards. If you're in the dentist chair, you're not looking at your email. And so that simple idea of my deep work, I put it on my calendar and I treat it like any other meeting or appointment. That's crucial, because deep work is not something that most people are going to casually stumble upon during their day. It really does have to be fought for.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned to you before we hit record that a friend of mine does this Zoom focus call. So we're leveraging technology to actually force deep work. And it's just once a week. And he invites a few of my fellow clients, pathfinders, we call them. And we jump on there and everybody states their purpose, what they're going to be working on for the next hour. And it's not checking emails. It's not just something on your to-do list, but it's something of high value. It's not urgent, but it's important. And it's something that you can really create value in your life. And so we just do this, and it's a level of accountability where we're all on a Zoom call and you shut off your microphone, but you're not allowed to check your cell phone. You're not allowed to check email. You're just dedicating this time to deep work, to focus. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about? Sort of creating this structured time where you can work on the high value work?
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, I'm surprised that we don't see this being built in more into the culture of businesses. I mean, you could really multiply the value that people are producing in the typical office environment if you actually protected and cultivated a culture of undistracted, concentrated time. Now, it doesn't mean the other stuff shouldn't happen. Email shouldn't happen. Meetings shouldn't happen. But there should be clear divisions. I mean, I always argue that we should be managing for depth. If I'm a manager, I should know, you should be, your optimal amount of deep work is you really should be doing 3 hours or 4 hours a day. That's going to produce the most value for our organization. How much are you doing? Only one? Like, that's a problem. We need to change our culture. We need to try to fix this issue. And I'm always surprised that we haven't concentrated more on that, though I will say I think the tides are shifting. I mean, Microsoft's Office, their suite, the productivity suite, including Outlook, now has the term deep work integrated into their software. They've added new tools to Outlook to try to help people consolidate and protect what they call concentration time. And in the actual software interface itself, it explains like this is to help preserve time for deep work, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a tide shifting. And I sometimes use the term neuroproductivity to talk about this, because essentially it is productivity that takes into account the reality of how the human brain works, right? So we're actually thinking like the human brain produces the best value when it can actually concentrate on something without context shifting. And so the human brain, just looking at the neurons, the way it functions, the way the psychologists and neuroscientists tell us the brain functions, does not do well if you have to jump from one thing to another.
So if I'm doing deep work, if I'm working on something, maybe even if it's just crafting a meaningful letter or an email, or I'm working on some project, and then my phone beeps, and if I just do a quick glance over and I see that it's from a friend and I don't need to really respond to it, and then I can come back to my work, is that a problem?
Yeah, it's killer. And it's something we get wrong. We think the issue is multitasking. So we think the issue is I shouldn't have my inbox open at the same time that I'm writing, at the same time that I'm on my phone. And we figured out in the early 2000s, okay, multitasking does not work. And so we stopped doing it, and we all patted ourselves on the back. But it turns out that context switching is just as damaging. So if I'm focusing on, let's say for this example, I'm writing a memo and it's difficult. If I jump over and look at my inbox, even if I only glance at it for 15 seconds, when I come back, I'm going to be operating at a reduced cognitive capacity. That context switch, what happens is I looked at my email and saw all of those messages, and I most of them I could not answer, but they're from other people and some are urgent. Your brain begins this complex process of switching context, which means it's suppressing some neural networks and it's amplifying other neural networks. And then you wrench it back to the other thing. And then it tries to, like a halting in a cartoon where you try to stop and you go sliding into the wall. And your brain's like, oh, wait, no, we're not trying to do that. Let's re-amplify these networks. Let's resuppress these networks. And you get a cognitive jumble. You can't think very well. And so we think we're single tasking, but what we're really doing is these quick checks every 10 or 15 minutes of inboxes, browser tabs, and phones. And it puts us in a completely reduced cognitive state. And so that's why I really emphasize deep work is not just cognitively demanding work. It's work you do with none of those context shifts.
If you like this video, hit the like button below. But also, what was helpful? What wasn't helpful? What questions do you have? I'll reply to every comment below. And if you actually want to get all of the notes, all of the quotes, all of the links, all of the action items from this entire episode, go to jimharshawjr.com/action and you can download the free PDF action plan. It'll give you all the notes, quotes, links, everything from the entire episode. You'll also get access to all of the action plans from all of my episodes of the Success Through Failure podcast. And if you want to learn how you can actually apply this learning to your life, figure out how you can start getting results now, you can actually sign up for a free one-time coaching call with me. Just go to jimharshawjr.com/apply. That's jimharshawjr.com/apply. It's a very quick, short application process. Find a time on my calendar, fill out the questionnaire, and you and I will have a conversation about how you can start getting results in your life by applying what you've learned. I look forward to talking to you.